I'm your host, RJ Martino, president of Iprov and Scale Technology. They're our sponsors for this show. I've grown multiple businesses and I'm always trying to learn new ways to grow my companies. I've always done it my own way, but I want to learn other ways. I want to hear how others have grown. I'm addicted to growing companies, and as we speak, I'm still growing my company right now. I'm super excited to introduce Evan Engel from iCare Pro. Evan has just got a world of knowledge, specifically targeted at optometrists. For the last 4 years, he's been consulting some of the most successful optometrists across the country. He's also got a peer group of 70 other consultants. That's all they do is help optometrists grow. He's going to talk a lot about return on investment for marketing and how they justify some of the techniques. He's going to give tips on some things that you can do almost immediately, and he's also going to give tips for people that might already have a completely full book, but they're looking for maybe more profitable profit centers. So I'm excited to introduce you to Evan Engel with iCare Pro. Evan Engel, I'm excited you're here on the podcast with us today. I know you and I have spent some time together, but there is so much knowledge wrapped in your brain that I'm just excited to hear you pour into our optometrists and even ophthalmologists that are listening today. So thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me, RJ. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Well, I want to kind of start off with talking about you, yourself, and then move in and kind of give an elevator pitch of what you guys do at iCare Pro. Obviously, we've talked about who our audience is, but maybe if you could frame it to the audience and kind of what you think their expectations might be.
Okay, sure. So, first of all, my name is Evan Engel. I'm a father of 3 little boys. I live in Jerusalem, Israel. So that's nice and interesting. I moved here around 12 years ago after spending quite a few years in the U.S. Army, and then basically went to university and came to Israel and ran my own business for a number of years. And then I got involved with marketing for optometrists, and I've been doing that for close to 4 years. So our company has been around for 14 years, and we work basically exclusively with optometrists. You know, a few ophthalmologists that work in optometry practices or with them, and we're a virtual company. So we're based in Toronto, but we have 70 employees all over the world spread around. So it's always an interesting discussion there with doctors. Oh, you're in Israel, so that's kind of cool. And in terms of just framing this conversation, I mean, having spent 2 years one-on-one working really hands-on with optometrists on a higher level marketing service, my knowledge base or my focus has really been to just dig deep into an optometry practice, which is really interesting just because it combines both medical services and retail, but really just dig deep into the profit centers and how a business can have measurable impact on growing their business, even if they're a 30-year-old business or a brand new business, and just looking at strategies that will actually drive measurable growth and not being beholden perhaps to a frame of reference of, marketing is social media and marketing is website and Google, but looking holistically and saying, ultimately, marketing is about growing a business, and it doesn't really matter where that activity takes place. It could be opening your doors early, or it could be how you're talking to patients, but as long as you can deliver measurable growth all the time to a business, that's really exciting, and there's just tons of potential. So that's really our whole, my focus personally.
No, that's great, and I love the concept of marketing isn't just in our world, social media or website. Talk more about what marketing means. And you guys are working exclusively with optometrists, ophthalmologists. That's kind of you guys' focus. Is that right?
That's correct. So we're exceptionally deep within that industry, and it's an amazing experience because what ends up happening is you just start learning about new ways to help a business grow that you would never have got to if you weren't specialized in that industry. Whether it's a new kind of Okay.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Tell me a little bit about that. Who are like normal clients of yours, or who are you consulting with? What do they look like, and what problems are they experiencing now?
So, the normal client is really just a local optometrist with maybe one to five doctors, one location, possibly two, three locations, uh, looking at a annual revenue of $1 to $2 million for the practice. Their profit centers are usually kind of split between optical and services. Many of the practices that I worked with were a little bit more focused on the service side, and in optometry, a lot of the newer technology has allowed for kind of more advanced solutions and bigger and higher level services and profit. In the general eye exam and optical model is one way of that's the old optometry. Not necessarily old, but that's just one kind of practice. And then there are also a lot of practices out there that really get passionate and excited about certain like specialized medical care, and that was kind of a niche area that I focused on. But that's the average practice is a practice that is extremely busy, and every single person in that practice is busy, so they're facing quite a few considerations within marketing. Number one is they need to be shown ROI before they can spend money, right? It's the cash flow is not huge, and so you're looking at taking steps within your marketing and understanding the revenue and impact of what you're doing, and before you move to, like, let's say more money. And it's also a lot about working one-on-one with the practice and knowing that they're busy, so you have to leverage whatever time you can get out of them to max value. But at the same point, they need a lot of marketing guidance, because a lot of things that are done in the office, in the exam, when they're visiting an optician, even before or after, there's just so many aspects of running a medical practice, running a retail practice, business, that requires a lot of marketing support. So it's basically, leveraging the doctor's time and resources in a way that's going to get max results, and then also kind of slowly build them into the understanding of why marketing is just so valuable. It's really about digging deeper into their business and understanding how they can grow. And I would say, like, the last part would be, data, and just realizing that as a local small practice, that they're not a corporate entity with billions of dollars to spend. It's important to be able to have just really clear facts on the ground. Is it working? Is it not working? What's the impact? And therefore, decisions can be made better.
Well, I thought it was interesting. You brought up the fact that sometimes they need kind of return on investment proof before they move into marketing. So a lot of your patient, or a lot of your customers are not coming to you saying, I definitely need your services. Tell me about what I'd call the sales process. Is it consultative? Are they coming to you, raising their hand, saying, I know exactly what I need you to do? How do they find you in the first place?
So that's a great question. And we definitely do it very differently than any of the other kind of companies in our space. Our approach is that we position ourselves as the expert in optometry. And as long as you can communicate all the time that there's just many ways to grow, you're sharing how to do it, you're explaining them what to do, why it's important, how it works, as many ways as possible. So then they come to you, and when they come to you, you're not selling to them, but you're just showing them based on their specific situation what the key or core ways that they could really have an impact on their business. If they decide to go with a different company, they still are armed with that information. So for example, I did a webinar last week with a review of optometric business, and I was joking to somebody else, and I said it was essentially a sales call to 100 people, because my webinar, which is just talking through strategies and ideas, is the same thing that would happen on a sales call. I don't sell it, I explain it, and if they want to work with us, great, and if not, not. I would say that some of the people reach out from our marketing to sign up. The vast majority reach out to learn more, get a little bit more of kind of a feel of how it would apply to their practice. But specifically within optometry, you're just working with a kind of small business that is very skeptical and doesn't have big budgets to start off with. And so it's really key, at least from our perspective, it's really key to just help them before they even start, right? And if you're helping them, and let's say you give them some advice and it works, and it's, they can see that, then when they realize that they're not actually able to implement real marketing on a mass scale, on an effective scale, then we're positioned as the best partners for them. So that's our strategy. We don't do like cold calling practices and sending out sales emails or anything like that. One of the things we just started doing recently was basically doing like these tiny little videos that we send out to practices every week. Here's an idea, here's a tip, but specific to their website, specific to their Facebook page or Google listing. So that's our approach to kind of like the sales process.
Yeah, that's great. So it's education. Someone's going to learn something from you, whether they use you or not. You're going to arm them with information. So let's talk about, now we know who's coming to you. We kind of understand a typical process. What about some people or some examples of things that you have done tactically and results that you've gotten from those things?
Sure. So one of the things that I like to do is really identify the big wins that are easy to do and have the most impact, and then move from step to step, because I can only get so much input and involvement from the practice, and some things can provide tremendous value. So a good example is Google reviews. Pretty much any local business, if you're going to do one thing only, having amazing, 5-star Google reviews that are just showcase that you're better than the other options is going to probably deliver the most impact over time. It's huge. And so I have quite a few examples of practice. But the practice that I did this webinar with last week, they had a location. They have 3 locations, and one of their locations last year in May had 5 Google reviews, and this year in May had 55 Google reviews. And on top of that, we work. Our main strategy is not paid ads. We focus mostly on organic, although we do have paid ads component, but using content and things like that to drive organic results. So in this one location, just excluding even the website and the actual appointment schedule and everything like that, just the statistics from Google My Business, from his Google listing itself, for that one location, he had 160 calls more in May of 2019 versus May of 2018. Wow. And he had 3,000 more discovery searches, which is people who are looking for, not for the doctor's name or the practice name or the address, but looking for, search terms like "I examine my city" or "optometrist near me." That's just one data point for a given location in a given month for a practice with 3 locations. So, yeah,
that was an additional 160 phone calls.
Yeah,
for that given month, and how many additional discoveries?
3,000 more. Or 2870 or something like that, more discovery searches,
And again, to reiterate what a discovery search is, this is people who aren't looking for your business, but are using terms that are associated with the service you offered. So those are people who otherwise would have never heard or known about that.
Right, 100%. Right. It's like literally 3,000 new patients are seeing you in that 1 month. Right? Are they all scheduling? Are they all choosing? No, but and that's just one example. From the Google review side of things, I got plenty of examples of the impact. I don't want to go in there, but another great example is the idea of using the content on a website. And the concept is that there are just tons of opportunities to whether it's you can look at the topics that your competitors talking about and say, hey, they don't have a page on this topic, but I know for a fact that there are people who have that issue or that condition or that symptom or are looking for that service. So, a great one for optometry is eye emergencies. You slap up a couple eye emergency pages and it's a winner every time, right? It literally always will deliver because the other practices around you, just on their website, they don't have decently developed pages on those topics, or if anything, they probably just have a bullet point saying a word about that topic. So that's to give an example. There are all kinds of different strategies with the content, but for that practice from the webinar, their location pages on their website. So taking each location has a page, and that's going to build up the strength for those individual locations. Those location pages had 400 more people visit in May of 2019 versus 2018 for 3 locations. So, just by designing and putting in some content that's more effective from an SEO standpoint, from a search engine standpoint, I've practices that a few pages on a page on a topic of eye emergencies can result in 5-10 new patients a month on an ongoing basis. It's not something that goes away, so that's pretty awesome. And so there's all kinds of things like that where just using topics or using like more targeting of locations around you can provide real measurable growth, or things like adding content on a website in Spanish if that's population area that demographic that's around you. So those are kind of interesting wins. But there are a lot of wins that also take place in the office. And so one of my favorites that I use all the time is a doctor of ours, not a doctor I managed, but a doctor somebody else managed. But he basically was, we helped him develop a strategy of how you present blue light protection to patients. And the idea was that you want to maximize the message by making sure that you're talking about it at every point of contact that patient has. They go to Google, they're searching for an eye doctor near them. Your Google listing has a Google post about it. You go to the website, you got something about it. You call the office. On the call waiting, there's a recording that's talking about it. They come in the office, the optician takes the person's glasses and does a little, flashes that laser pen through the glasses to see. The doctor talks about it. So basically by creating this funnel, some of it's online, some of it's in social media, some of it's in the office. That resulted for this particular practice in a 40% increase in second pair sales. And so that's a massive result for really a very small initiative. Strategic, replicatable, awesome, but still small and just impactful.
Okay, that's very cool. We keep talking marketing tactics, and I can see some of my optometrist friends who are listening to this getting excited about some of the tactics, also getting a little bit overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And so you bring up return on investment. Measuring all this seems to be incredibly attribution of marketing is hard. Mm-hmm. Your most successful customers, what are they using as a measuring stick for what's working, what's not? Are you guys digging into financials? Are you recording? Are you listen to calls? Or are you just looking at hits on the website? Tell me what they should be using. Your most successful, what should they be using as their measuring stick?
Well, so the first, the easiest one to kind of focus in on and look at would be like call tracking, call recording. So it's relatively easy today to set up basically a fake phone number that routes to your regular phone number, but on the way it picks up information. You can use different phone numbers for different topics, for different initiatives. If you're running print ads, or you're doing social media ads, or you're doing Google ads, and you have different numbers, you can start attributing success to different initiatives. That's pretty helpful. Additionally, you can record calls. You have to be careful from a HIPAA standpoint. So it has to be password protected and stuff like that. But that also is a really great way, because if you can listen to the calls, you can really assess the value of it. And especially if it's a higher revenue patient, where it's just more important for the practice to be very accurate in terms of understanding what's going on. So that's, obviously an easy one to start with, not that difficult to set up, but really valuable. And a lot of practices have multiple different avenues or multiple different ways of doing marketing. And so having, if you do billboards, or you do radio ads, or you do social ads, you do YouTube pre-roll ads, whatever the topic is, you can have a way to really understand what initiative is generating what kind of phone volume. But if you have call recording, you can even go a step further. Then we do a lot. Well, first of all, just scheduling from a website is obviously one way to also attribute success. So, having the option to choose, are you a new or existing patient, or what's the topic that you're coming in for, just to be able to determine, let's say, the value of a patient is not always going to be the same depending on the topic. So sometimes, even depending on the topic, if it's really important for a practice, you'll set up separate forms just to have, fully verified kind of, these are people who came from these pages. Some of our sites also use like real-time scheduling, which integrates with their electronic health records. Some of our practices use a company called GPN, which is basically business analytics internally. And so you can tie the appointment with GPN and have it, have integrated data from literally from the Google search all the way down into the purchase in the optical department. That's pretty advanced. I would say most practices are doing that. But on a basic level, I'd say, calls, call tracking, call recording, appointment scheduling, obviously having a differentiation between new and existing patients, possibly even having a little bit further differentiation by services. There are a lot of other statistics that I would, definitely recommend looking at. So your Google listing has its own analytics, and that's pretty impactful in terms of just for a local business of where people are going to find them. So usually that is another layer of data. Now, within optometry, there's a lot of seasonality. And so, December and, April or March are never going to be the same, right? It's just, December is the end of the year. You got your insurance benefits to use. You're going to rush. So one thing that whenever you're looking at data is also not only just to look at how this compares to the month prior, but also to look at how it compares to the year prior. It's actually far more important.
Sure.
Outside of that, I always look at Google search results, the time people spend on the site, the bounce rate, basically just statistics that indicate that the person coming to the site is a quality person. And then depending on the initiative, if it's an ad, you want to really kind of just assess what's performing, what's not, and looking at the ROI of that. But if it's, let's say, an organic page, you can also look at, how many people are coming to the pages that I've written, and that's another way to assess value. And then obviously internally in the office, most practices will also have their fingers on the pulse of just, are they growing from last year? Did they reach their growth potential? Did they exceed it? Obviously, every practice is going to have different capabilities in that regard, right? So a 30-year-old practice in a smaller city is not going to have the same growth potential as a newer practice in a metro area. But nonetheless, internal is also really important, just to, make sure that you're also kind of seeing it. Are you feeling it in the practice? Feeling it in the business. So those would be the key ways I would say that practice should kind of just determine the effect of the ROI of what they're doing.
Now, so again, great information. Love what you're sharing. My optometrist friends in the audience are loving the idea, but they usually are not extremely marketing designed to understand marketing. They're also not always the most proficient businessmen. And so if you